Welcome to the Patriot Barbie podcast. This show is made possible by Spreely Media. Download the Freedom Hub app today and join the free speech movement. I want to thank the people and the companies that keep my show going. All my sponsors can be found on patriotbarbie.com on my shop page. Century H2O, water systems for your home that provide clean, toxic-free, fluoride-free, and pharmaceutical-free drinking water for your family and pets for under $300. Dylan's Restaurants has been a proud podcast partner for years, and the owner is my personal friend. With 4 locations throughout Arizona, you'll always find one to dine at and love, especially the zoo. Well, especially the ranch. Well, maybe the one floating on Lake Pleasant. Dang it, they're all good. Support your freedom-loving businesses, and please check out Dylan's Restaurants. Small business owners, claim your employee retention tax credit for 2020 and 21 with an accountant you can trust. If you don't know what this is, you could be missing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars. Go to patriotbarbie.com and click on my partners page to read up. My Freedom Cart, a conservative-owned, made-in-America, toxic-free company that lets you shop online and delivers everything to your front door. Clean products, protein, snacks, hair care, makeup, toiletries. Dude, ditch Amazon, keep the perks, and support a pro-life and pro-freedom company. myfreedomcart.com. My beautiful smile is brought to you by Dr. Daniel Slike. His dental team is passionate, detailed, gentle, and clearly very talented. My entire smile has been restored to stunning, and I owe it all to him. He's right here in Scottsdale, and consults are free. Go to patriotbarbie.com, look him up, and schedule your free consultation. Are you worried about spike proteins? If not, you should be. Get the spike formula developed by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough from the Wellness Company by going to twc.health/patriotbarbie. Listeners of my podcast can use code PatriotBarbie at checkout for a discount. You guys, once again, you can find all my partners, my makeup line, my Patriot wine, my merch company, and the Freedom Cart at patriotbarbie.com under the shop page. Now, are you ready to get started? Let's go. Welcome to the Patriot Barbie podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey Graham, author and conservative activist. I love Jesus. I love America. I'm a proud wife, mom of 3, and I'm having bold and witty conversations with America's patriots, the ones that cancel culture desperately want to blacklist. Trust me, I've been there. In 2020, I defied government lockdowns in Oregon, reopened my salon, and became an icon of freedom. I've been targeted by government and raging liberals every day since, and I refuse to back down. Patriots, I'm here to tell you, your values are worth fighting for. The Patriot Barbie podcast starts now. Hey guys, welcome to the Patriot Barbie podcast. Lindsey Graham here. Guess what? I'm a biological woman. I'm a real woman. And since the rest of the world, the rest of America, refuses to acknowledge real women or empower real women, that is exactly what I'm going to do on my podcast for as long as it takes till we get the recognition that we deserve. Now, my guest today is a boss babe. Some of her accolades, let me just tell you, include being on NBC, ABC, CNN, Fox, CBS. She's a 2007 world silver medalist in extreme martial arts. This is a girl that dudes do not want to go use the locker room when she's in the locker room, trust me. She's a 2008 model Florida champion and 2008 Miss Bikini America. Woo! And a 6-time cover model. So I'm going to let Angelike tell us how she has built the successful, beautiful, fabulous life that she has built with her family. Welcome to the show, Angelike Norrie.
Oh, thank you so much, Lindsey. I'm so grateful to be here with you and your listeners. My husband, David, and I run a company called Turned On. And that Turned On is not the type of turned on that the world would recognize. It's actually based off of Matthew 5:14 and really shining our light in the world, but seeing with new eyes. And that actually requires taking the scales off, because when the scales are over your eyes, there's a lot of things in this world that will deceive you, that start the breakdown of our spirituality and beliefs. Of course, the nuclear family, our physical bodies, as we're seeing both in health and in culture, and as well as in our financial prosperity, because we want immunity in all these things. And immunity doesn't mean that we hide and we put ourselves in a bubble. It actually means that we know our enemies and we face our enemies and we know how to fight back, starting with the armor of God. But Turned On is our media company. We have a podcast. My husband's written books. and we help mentor and consult other businesses, but we really love to build teams and community that think and feel the same way that we do about, bringing the kingdom here on earth.
Yes, I love it. Well, I've got your book here. Well, I've got David's book here, so I'm
Yeah.
going to show everybody. It's literally called Turned On. I bet you sell a ton because people are like, "Ooh, what's this about?"
It's kind of meant to be meant to be a decoy. You think you're coming in for one thing,
right.
you're going to get turned on to Jesus instead.
That's right. That's what I tell people about. I get a lot of, hate on social media about my tattoos and my piercings. And I'm like, hey, they think they're going to talk to someone who's like, yeah, hardcore. And I'm like, and then I give them the gospel and they're like, whoa, I was not expecting that from you.
Yeah. Exactly.
But this is awesome. It says tuning in a tuned out world, which is, I honestly, when did he publish this? This is a few years old, right?
Yes, it's oddly, he was writing this long before the pandemic, and then it was published, I think in April of 2020. So right around the lockdowns is rather prophetic because the world got shut down, and he was talking about being in communion and the intrusion of technology. And that's when technology went like to 100x of what it is. And we're seeing that now with AI and everything else. And essentially, when we go 2D, even though we're using it right now to go to the world, when we go 2D, we actually lose large parts of that human connection that God has designed us for. And
what is 2D? 2D is like social media,
two-dimensional, anything that's behind the screen. The devil wants us isolated.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a lot of power in technology. Yes, we can reach the ends of the earth through what we're doing right now, and that's where we bring the good news. So whatever the devil has meant to create and counterfeit for bad, God will turn for good. So we're going to utilize this platform for the right reasons, but we want to do it in communion as well. And that intrusion of technology can start in the bedroom in our homes. It can separate between you and your children, and of course in community. And that's what Turned On is we were just starting to see so many people with their heads down, and it wasn't just having their head in a device. It was really just lack of communication, lack of human connection. And the more and more we rely on it, the slipperier the slope gets. So we kind of got to get back to some things that are to create the revival. It's not about reinventing. Let's not reinvent things. Let's revive the original.
We did it right. We did it right hundreds and hundreds of years ago before all of this. I think back about how hard life was for people. When I say hard, I don't even mean in a bad way. Just the silliest things. I was making my coffee this morning and I put my Keurig cup in and I had a cup of coffee and I was like, so back in the olden days, did they have to grind their beans, put it in a filter, steam the water, make a fire, steam the water, boil the water, then put it over the grounds, and there's no creamer.
Exactly.
That was it. And I just think about sometimes how like our lives have been simplified to this point, right? Where you put a cup in a thing because we don't have time to make a cup of coffee, which might have taken an hour back then.
Yeah.
And the world has forced so much onto us that we have to get so much accomplished in one day that we can't stop and do the things that we used to do. And probably
take a moment. Yeah.
Probably making a cup of coffee was like a mom's like quiet time in the morning. Like I'm going to go ground the beans. And now we don't have any of those still quiet moments anymore. They're filled with everything.
Yeah, if they did it to save us time, yet we have less time now than we ever did. And the reason why is because we're not utilizing time for our priorities. We're filling up the excess time with things to speed things up rather than slow the important stuff down. And that's where we get caught up. That's the road to hell is not some steep drop. It is a slow, gradual one.
Yeah.
And we're going to find ourselves there faster than we could potentially imagine, just because it's the bully, it's just you get pushed, you fight back. But over time, there's so much an intrusion of it. Like they might stop for a second, right? But you're so far down the line after a while that you look back and you go, how the heck did I end up here?
Yeah, I think
there's technology or anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we are in America. I feel like, I mean, I think that you and I probably both agree that the war on children and the war on women is here.
Yes.
And so many people say, how did we get here? And I'm like, what do you mean? How did we get here? Like, have you not been watching? It's been one tiny inclusive thing after another until before you know it, kids are cutting their boobs off at 12 years old. Yeah. And I'm going to the premiere of Cut, which is a documentary about transgenderism and the fact that little kids are mutilating their bodies now. And I've already previewed the movie. Um, Basically, it all comes down to it started with social media.
Yeah.
The the propaganda of little girls feeling like if you don't look like this Instagram model, then you basically don't cut it. So you might as well like be a tomboy, and that means you're a boy. And it's so sad. You're right. What society has turned us into as far as with our heads down. I want to read like the back of a little bit of the back of your book, and so we can get into like kind of what David's writing in here. Did you help him write this, by the way?
Yeah, both hit that and The Pursuit, which his recent one. The
Yeah.
Pursuit is the subtitle is actually the only truth that can set you free is the truth they don't want you to know, and so that one's an even deeper dive into the topic. And so technically we've co-authored it, and you can see me drip throughout the book. But I
Oh
made sure
man, I feel like I need to read that one now.
yeah, you do. You
I
definitely
want that
do.
one. Oh my gosh.
Your hands on it.
Well, the back says, how much happier could you be by simply lifting your head up? What possibilities await you when you tell the world that you are open for business? What could you become with a bigger smile that says, I'm up for the relationship?
Yeah.
So tell me how you balance, because I know that you're a social marketer, you're an
We do
influencer.
have a social retail business. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got to be in a computer. How do you balance the two and still, remain a good mom and a good wife and keep your head up?
I think about that like traffic brokering. Some people really like the idea of social selling because if they're going to be on social media and they want to leverage that time to monetize it and serve an audience to meet a need, that's how we use it. But we also have more traditional business building that is in community that, it's very mission focused. So we balance it because we stay focused on one thing. And that one thing is what God has us here for. We want to bring more people to Christ. We want to speak life over the areas that He's called us to steward. And we can use technology, but we want to maximize our lives offline and not online. So essentially, where the majority of today's influencers or even social sellers are telling you how to get more followers and how to beat the algorithms and how to use Chat GPT to write all your content, like I'm going to do the opposite. So I always kind of look in the direction that the world is going and say, what's the antithesis of that? Because that's where I want to go. We're in the world, we're not of it. We can use things to have advantage over some things, and we can bring the good news and bring the right messaging to the world where all the eyeballs are. But I'm going to pull them as far away from that as possible. I don't want to teach people how to get clever online and do more online and get time away from their families, because the whole reason they're building something like that is to have more time with them. The whole reason that they're doing that is to protect the nuclear family, is so that they can have more time freedom, so they can have more financial freedom. The whole purpose of that is so that their children aren't off watching pornography because they're too busy doing something else.
Right.
That's the primary reason we have built these businesses. So we balance it by keeping the main thing the main thing. I don't get wrapped up in promos. I don't get wrapped up in all of and hype that belongs in some of those social selling spaces. I'm here to serve a family, and starting with my own based off God's design. And then I have things that I recommend to people on how we've maintained those areas of our lives, the four main hallways that we talk about and turned on, like our faith, our home team, which is obviously marriage and our time with our children, our physical temples, our bodies, and our financial stewardship. So those four main hallways have solutions. They have pragmatic solutions. They have things that we have found answers to our own problems. So I don't make one bigger than the other. They're all cohesive. I chase God and I ask Him, like, what is it that you've designed for us? What did you prepare for us? What's at the table for us? What's in your original design? How can we have access to it? How has it helped me get through some of my dark moments, whether it's physically or in our marriage or financially? And we look for those pragmatic ways and say, does this fit in our overall mission? If it's a yes, we think about bringing it on board. If it's a no, it's just a no. And so that's how we balance it, by keeping the main thing, and we don't get too caught up in what the world is doing and how to sell or be online or anything like that.
Gosh, that's amazing. I feel like that I'm pretty new into the influential social media thing.
Yeah.
And I'm always shocked at how many people want you to do everything. They want you to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, that really has nothing to do with me. Like, you just want to use my numbers to make sales. But
That's traffic brokering. That's right.
yeah, I need to believe in what I'm doing before
Yes.
I do it. And the minute you start doing something just for the buck is the minute that you compromise your entire brand
Yep.
and everything you stand for.
Yep.
And I think that that's why people like you are, and people like me are successful with social networking,
Correct.
because people know that you're not just selling something. You're presenting them with something that you truly believe in, and
Yes.
you wouldn't promote it if you didn't believe in it. So they know, I can trust you. I can.
That's
What
right.
what other, you guys have built set multiple says it says lead tens of thousands to their own success while having generated multiple seven figures. What kind of businesses have you guys done throughout your life?
So we are, before we became entrepreneurs, before we became business owners, before we led those people, we were in, like, my husband was a multimedia journalist. You know, he's a writer by trade. He's been in front of and behind the camera. He's penned thousands of columns and you know, national newspapers to sports writing, to you name it. I was a professional martial artist, so that's where those accolades came from as a professional athlete. Where I learned the majority of my business skill set through those philosophies, to be quite honest. Like, the mindset of a champion is the mindset of your one percenters in success. Like, you just know how to push through the adversity so that you could, you know, win the prize. You know, that's biblical. But we actually tripped over, or had the on-ramp of entrepreneurship through the network marketing model. And we built a company for 8 years, starting in, I think it was 2013 to 2020. That was 7 years. And that's where we really kind of got our training wheels on. You know, it was this on ramp to business ownership, to learning what it meant to lead thousands of people, but not just for our own wallet, but to actually free them. You know, after some time, there were some changes within the company. And just like you said, like, I just wasn't willing to compromise. We parted ways. We actually resigned our check. You know, which looks foolish to the world, but, you know, you're going to be persecuted for righteousness' sake. And sometimes you have to do what things people think is unfathomable or unthinkable in order to get to the land of milk and honey. And so we spent most of 2020, as a matter of fact, doing a lot of consulting for companies that wanted to move into an affiliate-based model. My husband teaches something called Speak Up, where we teach charismatic leadership to business owners and business executives, so C-suite executives and companies. In 2020, we saw everybody, you know, all companies, including companies like Nationwide Insurance and Advent Health, all moving online. They didn't know what to do with themselves. They went from in-person, you know, sales forces to online selling. And my husband is really great at teaching how to make the 2D more 3D. You know, like, really humanizing what's behind the brand, humanizing behind what's behind your story. And that's how you turn your personality, not mine, yours, into profit, because there's ways to do that you can do today to be more effective in a short attention span society. So that really turned into this consulting type of company, where we love working with people that have online brands, that have a presence, whether it's in brick and mortars or on social media, to stand out. And we really love working with people that have you know, a kingdom focus. We really love working with people that are doing it the right way. They're honest, that do it with integrity, because we believe those are the ones that are going to shine bright in the darkest times. So that's where, you know, it all kind of expanded. And now we're actually in the build process of a new build with a company that we're really excited about as well. So we've got a lot of things going on. It's all about
I love it when people say to me, by the way, I have little Tucker Carlson here with me today on my podcast.
Oh
Look at
my
him.
gosh.
As if I wasn't busy enough.
Well, I have my redheaded stepchild over here, and I can't bring him on camera because he'll take up the whole screen. He's an 80-pound redheaded golden doodle. So,
oh my gosh.
Of course.
Yeah. So you're busy. I mean, you're the ultimate boss babe. I want to talk a little bit about, I just want to get your opinions on, especially like you're forming, creating, sustaining a biblical household, which is really hard to do in this culture. I feel
Yes.
like a lot of people aren't just not doing it, they don't even know what it is.
Hmm.
How do you combat the culture in your household and stay biblical with your children?
I'm convicted. Listen, I can't I can give you strategies all day long.
Mhm.
There's nothing new under the sun. But the Lord downloaded to me something very specific several years ago, and I reference it as the divine order or kingdom order. I've gotten this question a lot, and
Mhm.
it happened to come my way multiple times, long before the world got even crazier in the last 3 years. And they're like, "Well, how do you do it? Like, how do you juggle it all?" And I was like, you know what? I think the whole world has gotten it wrong. Most people are talking about striving for balance. And it's not balance. I think there's an order to what God has given us. And I don't think I know, because he showed me very specifically in the book of Genesis, which I'm going to get to.
Mhm.
Um, and when he calls us to focus on things, he's not expecting us to have it all right all the time, but he gives us main areas to make sure that we're holding to a standard of excellence. And when you look at Genesis, it's really clear. He took me to literally Genesis 1:1, and if you look at how he set up creation,
Mhm.
it helps us create our home team. And the first thing he did was, in the beginning, right, there was a dark and formless void. Hmm, interesting. Isn't that what the world looks like right now?
Yeah.
We're in a dark and formless void. Sometimes our homes can feel like that. Sometimes our marriages can feel like that. Sometimes our physical health can feel like that. Sometimes our finances can feel like that. So we have to hover like he did. He hovered, and he saw there was chaos. So the first thing he said was, "Let there be light." And he wasn't talking about sunlight. It was him, right? The great I
Mhm.
am. He puts himself in front of it all, and he creates that separation. And so that's what we have to remember. He's first and foremost. And if we're trying to put the cart before the horse, that's where we go wrong immediately. And he's the first thing he did after, us realizing there's an awareness that we have to have, that he's the one, he's the author. He set up an environment. So whether you're trying to get your finances in order, trying to get your marriage in order, trying to get your body in order, trying to get your faith in order, if you don't have your environment set up for success, you're already behind the eight ball.
Mhm.
Now, I don't suggest that your house needs to look like Pinterest, because mine certainly doesn't.
Right.
But we need to have a sense of order here. You need to have things in place that allow for the right conversations to be had. If you're trying to get your health in order, well, your pantry is probably a good place to start. Your refrigerator
Yeah.
is probably a good place to start. If you need your finances in order, you need to have a good awareness of like where money's coming in and where it's going out.
Mhm.
That's environment. He set that up so that the order of life that we're to come after had a place to thrive. So environment's one, okay?
Mhm.
Then he obviously created plant life, animal life, and then human life, but he started with Adam. This is very important. This is very important. He started with Adam, and he gave Adam a job. He had Adam have authority over everything else. He told him to name the animals. He had authority. So he was already a leader. But Adam was fully equipped. He didn't mess up with Adam. The Lord didn't say, "Hey, I messed up." He said he's lonely. And what did he do? He didn't say, "Hey, Adam, what do you think about this Eve chick? How would you like her to look?" He put him to sleep, because God doesn't need any interruptions from our own doing.
Right.
And he put him to sleep, and he formed Eve. He formed woman. And when he awoke, he looked at her and said, "Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh." So he knew her. So when we look at the order of our own homes, and we oftentimes look at other people to fix us. Like I can't look at my husband and expect him to quote unquote make me happy or complete me. I have to look at God's order and say, like, have I set up my environment, whether it's mentally, spiritually, physically, or whatever, for success today? How am I first talking to God and then talking to myself before I can go talk to my husband? Like he
Mhm.
set up the individual before he even created relationship. So you got to come with it, like
Yeah.
you can't come expecting everyone to fill your gaps. Like you got to come with it and knowing that you are a whole in the image of God.
Yeah.
So I teach my children that. I teach, we teach that as a couple. Like my children have to drink the well from our marriage, and that means that we have to be accountable to ourselves first. I have to hold myself accountable to a standard that God has created me for. I can't expect it from David. But with that relationship, he said, "Be fruitful and multiply." Then he gave him a mission field. So oftentimes we get up and it's like the first thing on our mind is work. The first thing on our mind is our finances. The first thing on our mind is something outside of our homes. And because of this small box that I have in my hand right now, that I have access to the literal world's conversations 24 hours a day in my pocket.
Yeah.
Well, God didn't expect, he's like trying to get through on FM and you're messing around on AM. Like you can't hear him or his order for your life and what he has for you because you're so distracted by all the other things that you're trying to gain control of. And that's when we start to white knuckle the process. So biblical order in our home is really big. And the minute that I notice things are going awry, I can usually pinpoint where we've dropped the ball.
Wow.
Go back to the beginning.
This is like, I hope you don't think I'm dazing off. I seriously feel that this is so insightful. Like I've never heard anyone dissect Genesis 1:1 to 1:5, like to that extent, and how incredible it is.
I do a whole, like I've done keynotes on this, I have presentations on this. Actually, it's available on my website for free. I go through like an audio of the divine order and where we get things messed up because we're trying to juggle so many things. I'm like, hold on, that you're trying to juggle something has nothing to do with the fact that you never laid the foundation.
Right.
We're trying to fix all this stuff up in the air and we're walking around on quicksand, and God can act very, very swiftly and suddenly, but you got to get in step with him first. And we're always trying to run ahead. It's like you've got your hands on 10 and 2 and you're white knuckling the process. And he said left and you turn right. And he's telling you to get off an exit in 2 exits from now, but you're getting off one early. We just miss it because we're trying to be in control. And I get it. We want control. We want to feel like, we have control of things, and there is a way to steward them. But to honor his biblical order, I think takes a lot of discipline and like just being really intuitive to just those 4 main things,
Right. And I think a lot of people too are the reason they're white knuckling the steering wheel is because they think they see what he has, or they think they know what he has.
Yeah.
Or it's so easy to confuse what I want with what I think God wants for me. And I've experienced this over the last 3 years, trying to rewrite my story and start over in Arizona and going, okay, Lord, what direction are you taking me? And an opportunity will present itself. And I think, well, this is the Lord. He's gifting me this on a platter. And I've taken not devastating turns, just wrong turns. And sure enough, God will say, all right, well, you took that turn. It's not going to end well. When you're ready, let me know. I've got another direction for you. And just, I guess, being in the word and praying and hoping that you see, like, how do you distinguish, hey, this direction is where God's taking me, or this is the direction I think God's taking me because it looks so fruitful?
Great question. So there's a number of different ways that I try to do that. But what's interesting is that doesn't matter how much I think I've got things figured out, I get humbled day to day. I've taken wrong turns, and thank God for the grace of God that he can correct it, or you'll learn lessons out of it. But I know there's only one direction he has, and that's forward. He's not a regressive God. He's progressive, and progressive in his terms, not the world's terms. He moves things forward. And he designed our feet to point that way for a reason. So when we feel stuck or we feel like we're kind of swaying back and forth, that means we're kind of anchored to an area maybe of our own doing. But to be honest with you, there's a big difference between when we see something that we think is from him, and then we go running ahead and we ask him to bless it, versus when God breathes on something and he gets your attention. That's an entirely different thing. We've had that happen even recently, where we've kind of, been in motion doing all the things that we know to do, but ultimately we're always praying, Lord, you open doors with red carpet so we know that it's you. You slam doors shut that we know that maybe that we've been running ahead on. Make it so clear, so inexplicable that you're the one that gets the glory for this. And when he breathes the ruach, it's going to get your attention. It's going to be to the point that like you can't even avoid it, because every turn that you're taking, he keeps showing up.
Right.
So that's when we usually are like, okay, stop, be still, know that it is God. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I look for like red lights, green lights, and yellow lights, basically in the Holy Spirit, and how I discern that voice. If I'm feeling resistance around something, or like it's janky, I have to ask myself why. Like, is it Is it fear of, am I being fearful of what God has for me? Am I being fearful because it's too big? Am I starting to question my worthiness? Am I starting to question my ability? Then I know that maybe the enemy is trying to stop me from something.
Hmm.
But if it's getting janky in the regard that, like, there's doors being slammed here and I'm still trying to force them open,
Yeah.
maybe, just maybe, the Holy Spirit's trying to protect you from moving forward. If I get a pause, I just, I take it easy and I wait. I
Mhm.
wait and I pray. But if I'm getting a green light from the Lord, it's usually pretty clear. You feel a peace beyond human understanding. And
Mhm.
I know that that is so supernatural because I've experienced it. Sometimes you're trying to force the peace. You're like, oh, this feels good. I'm winning, like,
Yeah.
even in creating revenue streams, like, you might be, making money, but somewhere along the way it feels janky, but you're like, but I'm winning. And so you think that that's
Right.
the peace that, or the favor of God. It's not. It's
Yeah.
not. Like, you can make money outside of God's plan. Trust me. I've done
Oh,
it,
yeah. In
but
fact, you probably will, because it's Satan's way of keeping you roped in. Like, hey,
that's
it's
right.
a distraction. If she's so making so much money, she just keeps doing this, she won't stop to listen to what God might have for her.
That's right. And it's so far beyond what we're humanly, capable of doing. So
Mhm.
when he breathes on something, it's a green light. When you have a peace beyond human understanding, like we recently had peace on something, I was like, I don't even know how I have peace over this. Like, I haven't met these people, I haven't tried this thing. Like, I just have so much supernatural peace. And obviously since then things have come to fruition where I was like, yep, that was definitely God. Like,
Mhm.
you can't avoid it, because that's like the ruach. Like I said, it's the same breath that he breathed, into Adam. It's the same breath on the Ezekiel bones. Like, it brings life back to the lifeless.
Mhm.
It 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 just changes things, whether you're doing it or not. And when you're in the will of God, you ever see those type of people where you're just like, man, things just keep working out for them?
Mhm.
Well, that's because they're in step with the Holy Spirit. And Jesus was our perfect example of that. Perfect example of what it looks like to be rightly related with the Lord
Yeah.
and or with God. And that's what that doesn't mean he's not going to be in the wilderness, or you're not going to be in the wilderness, or I'm not going to be in the wilderness, but you're going to know what it takes to carry through, because you're going to be armed with all of the right things, the word, to face it, to filter it through truth, and to navigate those storms.
Mhm. I tell people too, I love this analogy, and this analogy came to me through The Chosen, that TV show, which
Hmm.
I loved because it really brought the gospel of Jesus to like a modern day
Yes.
concept, right? On TV. When when Peter was in the boat and was questioning the net, and he
Hmm.
said, drop the net, and he said, I've been fishing here all night. There are no fish.
Yep.
And Jesus says, trust me, drop the net. He drops the net, and a lot of people don't realize he doesn't get fish. He gets like an abundance of fish to the point where his boat is starting to sink.
Yeah.
Like when you like that is what God will do. And it's such a powerful testimony, because when you do finally release everything to him, you're not just going to get a few fish and go, thanks, Lord. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, Lord,
Uh-huh.
you overly blessed me. I don't even know what to do with it. It's that joyful when you're truly following him. It's almost like stressful how how incredible God can bless you if you cast your net over and say, I will follow you.
I find that story so interesting, and we've used it a lot even in business, because some people, they'll come to us and we consult, and they're like, but I'm doing all these things. I'm like, okay, we're not asking you not to do those things. Perhaps where you're doing them is not the fertile soil.
Mhm.
Jesus didn't tell him to stop fishing. He said, cast it on the other side of the boat. Right. So sometimes it's just a matter of, taking a little direction, in the same, like, he cross pollinates our gifts. Like, if you're in your gifting, because you have unique gifts
Mhm.
and talents that are assigned to you, and things aren't working, perhaps it's just the soil you're doing it in. Perhaps it's the environment, going back to that you're doing it in. Perhaps it's the people collectively, your core group of people that are around you, aren't the ones he's assigned you to. And maybe that's why it's not working. He never said, go do something else. He just said, drop it again,
Mhm.
on
And
this time on the other side of the boat. So the thing is like, just do what, if you're in your calling, and if you're doing the things that he's called you to do by investing in your gifts and talents, then perhaps it's just a matter of a small pivot. We've pivoted so many times in our career, but we've always kept the main thing the main thing. And that's why I try to tell people, because sometimes people will say, well, I thought you were doing this. Or then you're like, "Oh, no, you've got it twisted. Like, we've kept the same thing. We've kept our focus on the same thing, the same one. But if those things that we've been partnered with start partnering with other stuff, then it's time for us to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And then God will find another partnership to be multiplied.
Yeah.
But we keep going in the same direction. And that's what I'm trying to get across, is it doesn't mean you can't pivot or even change your mind sometimes. But as long as you are focused on God and you are sensitive to the Holy Spirit, you will not be led astray.
Yeah. And here's the other thing that as you're talking, it's kind of like occurring to me. He asked him to do something that he had already been doing all night long. Like the thing that he asked him to do required more faith because he had already been doing it and it wasn't successful.
Mm-hmm.
So when Jesus says cast the net over, and he's like, I've already done that. Why would this be any different? It required that much more faith because he's like, do the same thing you've been doing for 12 hours that hasn't worked. And instead of doing it for you, you're doing it because I asked you to. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are doing their calling, or they think they are. They're using their gifts and their talents for whatever reasons. But if it's not for the Lord, it's a very different fruit. It's not going to render the same crops. And I feel like so many people, they are using their talents. They just aren't dedicating it fully to the Lord.
Yeah.
And so when the Lord says, no, keep doing it, but this time from now on, I want you to do it for me. And it would be like, okay, well, that would change everything.
Mm-hmm. Again, when God breathes, like it's really, it's such an incredible thing to witness. Again, you could be doing this thing over and over again and bless it. Like, I don't think that he can't bless it, because you're being faithful of those gifts, and he'll have provisions. Mm-hmm. But the minute you stop and listen and stop running ahead, and he asks you to do something again, it requires a little bit of faith. It requires stepping out of the boat. It requires doing it again, what you've been doing all night, whatever it might be. That's when he's like, well done, my good and faithful servant. Yeah. And that's when he breathes. And it's just really a cool thing to witness, not only in your own life, but when you get to witness it in others.
Mm-hmm. I love that term. So where can people find you were talking about your lessons that were free on your website. What is it? AngelikeNorrie.com? Or is it turnedon.com?
It is turnedon.com. And we paid a premium for that.
I bet you did. I bet you did. You know what? That in itself is a ministry, because people are Googling it going, yeah, I'm going to get porn. And they're like, I got the gospel.
That's right. And it's exactly what they're going to get when they go to the site, which is so interesting that it was actually available. Like,
I can't believe it.
Turned on available. How is turnedon.com available?
That is the Lord breathing.
Yes, that's exactly. I was about to answer my question. That's the Ruach. That's when you know.
Let me tell you, when the left called me Patriot Barbie and I decided to run with it just to be a little stinker, little did I know that God was going to develop this whole persona, right? I went on patriotbarbie.com and got it. And I was like, this is not available. It is. It's available. Everything about Patriot Barbie was available. And throughout the last 3 years, I feel like I'll get a God download of something I should be doing. Mm-hmm. The first thing I'll do is go check the website. And if it's available, I'm
like 100 URLs.
Yeah.
A multi-passionate,
Yeah. It's almost like, how could you give me this incredible idea and not let anyone go steal it from me beforehand? Yeah. It's amazing.
He's good.
Okay, so turnedon.com.
Yeah, so turnedon.com is our primary website, and you can see everything from our courses there to where David's books are there. You can connect with us on social media. David's actually going to be up and running his blog again through that website. We're both on Facebook and Instagram. My handle on Instagram is just Angelike Norrie, so we can have that spelled out, I'm sure, in the...
Yes, we will. Indeed.
Yeah, Angelique is definitely not spelled the traditional French way because I'm Greek.
Angelique.
Yeah. But we do everything from live events to one-on-one consulting to courses to just free mentorship. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. But yeah, the Divine Order is available. There's a section on there for the Turned On method, and if once you get to the bottom of the turned on method, it's not ready yet, essentially. And that's when the divine order will pop up as a freebie. And
Okay.
you put in your info there and download it. It's an audio and a workbook. And kind of go through it at a little higher level rather than the broad brush that I gave here today.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm assuming there is some deep stuff. This is already empowering and enlightening, and it's a 30-minute podcast, so I'm sure I'll be on turnedon.com soon.
Yes. Yeah. So we're grateful. Thank you so much for having us here. It's the important work that you're doing. You're really spearheading and pioneering, into a generation right now that needs it now more than ever. It's crazy what's going on in the world. But as much as it surprises us, on a day-to-day basis, it really doesn't, because the word of God tells us, what we're facing, these birth pains. And it's the evil has always been there. I just think that it's getting exposed a lot more now, and it's being accelerated because his time's running up.
And they're getting braver. The demons are getting braver. They know that people aren't speaking out against them, so they're becoming more prevalent. I hate it because people will message me, speak up. Yeah, that's right.
Ephesians 5:11. That's one of our hats in our merchandise, and that's what our program is called. Speak Up. Like, yes, it's equipping business owners, but it's really about hyper communicating with the truth.
Yeah. A lot of people will ask me on Instagram, are we in end times? Is it going to get worse? And I'm like, oh, it's going to get worse. Like, it's going to get way worse. I mean, there's still hope in that. I actually find it so hopeful that it's this bad, because that does mean Jesus is coming back soon.
Yeah.
And it gives
us
closer. Okay. And it gives us a purpose to fall into. It gives people the ability to understand how strong they are or how strong they need to be. I think that these times are really, really probably saving more souls, because some people are starting to wake up and say, the line is so clear between good and evil now. It's almost undeniable.
Yeah. And it's actually waking a lot of people up.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right. What are we cheersing to?
We're going to cheers to getting turned on. Okay. Speaking up and walking out the mission that God has over your life, and speaking truth against all the lies with scales off of our eyes.
Oh, it was like a poem. It was a poem cheers.
Totally unplanned.
I think that was an accident, and I'm here for it.
Cheers.
Cheers. Well, thank you, Angelique. You are an empowering woman. I appreciate you so much.
Likewise. Thank you for having me here. Thanks to the listeners. I look forward to connecting with you all and hearing stories and however I can serve or add value.
Thanks for tuning in to the Patriot Barbie podcast. Follow me on Truth Social at The Patriot Barbie and Instagram at the.patriot.barbie. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with your friends. You can find this show, my book Targeted, and my apparel line on www.patriotbarbie.com. God bless America, and God bless you.
Are you worried about spike proteins and how they may impact your health? Are you looking for help? The Wellness Company has an answer in the form of our clean, pure, all-natural spike formula developed by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough. The Wellness Company's spike formula includes the incredible nattokinase, dandelion root, black sativa extract, green tea, and Irish sea moss. Even better, the spike formula by the Wellness Company is vegan, gluten-free, and made right here in the US, so you know that you can trust and rely on it if you're concerned about spike proteins.